What is going on, everybody? How is everyone doing? Welcome to another episode of the Funnel Vision Show, where we help performance-driven marketers and agencies really level up their game. And today I am joined by Anthony Gindin. He is the founder and CEO of Agency Different. He's an author, a speaker, and a coach. Anthony, I'm super excited to have you here.
Thank you very much, Mikhail. I'm happy to be here as well.
Nice, man. It's going to be a fun conversation because you've done a lot of really, really cool things. You've built multiple companies, you've sold them, you've published books, and now you help agencies. So for those who don't know, give me your humble brag or your not so humble brag, depending on how you want to approach it. Basically, we do this every time. What exactly have you been able to do for your clients? What have you been able to do for your own business? In other words, why should people kind of tune in and listen to this episode?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess I would start with a little bit of just background. I like to jokingly say that I've been in advertising for 37 years, which is a bit of a joke because it kind of all started when I was about 7. So, I used to sit in front of the TV glued to it, waiting to watch the commercials. That was really all I cared about. And I was fascinated by how terrible most commercials are. That was really what got me interested. So what I used to do is I used to rewrite all the commercials, and then I would pitch them to my mom, and she would give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down based on whether or not she felt that it was better. Advance ahead about 10 years, I started my first agency when I was 17, sold it 5 years later. Then I built my second agency, grew that to about 45 people, sold that when I was 24. Over the past, 23 years, I've been blessed to have built 6 companies and sold 4 of them. 2 of them were e-commerce companies that I took public on the Canadian Stock Exchange. So, basically I have a real passion for building great brands and understanding, what creates a sellable company. And so, when I work with agency founders, agency principals, which is my primary focus today, I really bring all of that experience and all the things I've gone through, all the crazy ups and downs, into that picture. And I sort of put those into some very clear models and frameworks. I have a huge, bank of models and frameworks that I use to sort of help, agency founders and agency leaders really think through, take a step back and think through what their business looks like today, what they want it to be tomorrow, and how to get there.
Very interesting. So while I was out playing soccer, you were watching commercials and rewriting copy and scripts for how do you sell Tide Pods in on TV or something along those lines.
That's really funny that you say Tide, because I actually remember a Tide commercial almost specifically. I remember pitching that to my mom one time. So it's funny you say that.
That's hilarious. Okay, so basically, you've always had this kind of passion for advertising, for marketing in general. You've been able to kind of build these, 6 businesses. 2 of them you decided to, take public, which is impressive in its own right. What are the books that you wrote? Like, tell me a little bit of the background in terms of what are the 2 angles and the 2 different books you wrote.
Yeah, sure. I wrote my first book in 2019, and it was called The Modern Sales and Marketing Ecosystem. That was when I fully went out on my own as a consultant. I'd been doing consulting for many years before then, but I was part of bigger agencies and consulting firms. That was when I went out on my own. I established Futurecraft Consulting, and I published my first book, The Modern Sales and Marketing Ecosystem. Really, that book was just laying out, in its simplest form, here is the model that any B2B organization needs to build to create a high-functioning, high-performing sales and marketing ecosystem. My goal there was to give people more at the marketing manager or VP level, sort of a guide to get up to the more of a C-suite level with, how do you actually re-engineer things to drive revenue growth and profitability. And then skip ahead to just this past year, I published my second book, The Agency Secret, where I've really shifted my focus to just agencies, which is kind of what what I do best and what I've always been doing for the past 23 years. So I wanted to crystallize my agency specific knowledge into a book, which I did in The Agency Secret. And it basically is kind of a soup to nuts playbook for how to take a step back and reinvent your agency to systemize repeatable client acquisition and growth, and to do so in a way that's more profitable. And so I have all sorts of key, perspectives and principles within the book. But and you can, by the way, you can go to theagencysecret.com to find that book. Just became a bestseller, which I'm quite excited about in the United States, Canada, Germany, and Australia on Amazon. So that's really exciting. And I'd encourage everyone to give it a read.
So let's dive a little bit into that second book, because obviously customer acquisition, client acquisition is always a challenge for every single agency, and it sounds like you've been able to solve it, right? You've gone through the process of obviously doing marketing for your own companies, and then running your own agency. If in order to take your company public, you obviously were able to figure out how to acquire customers for your e-commerce businesses, and now you're able to kind of help these agencies grow through customer acquisition and obviously other systems and frameworks. But let's focus on the client acquisition aspect of things. Walk me through, what do you tell a typical agency? What is that framework? How do you help, or how do you coach, I should say, agencies to acquire clients? Is there a framework that you follow? Is it a step-by-step process? Is it funnel focused? Like what does that look like?
So first, I'll just go really high level. My business is called Agency Different. And there's a reason for that. It's because I believe the number one issue that every agency has is differentiation, right? They're good at helping their clients build great brands and differentiate, but they often fail to do it for themselves. I believe every agency is truly unique on the inside, yet on the outside, most agencies appear almost identical. And I say that coming from 9 years on the client side, where I was constantly evaluating agencies. I mean, it's like wading through a sea of, it's all the same messaging, all the same everything. So the real key is you need to find a way to differentiate and stand out in the market, because there's tens of thousands of agencies just in the US alone. So that's at the high level. Differentiation is really the key driver. But when you go deeper, what agencies need to do is elevate their perceived value, right? So when a potential new client is looking at you, all that really matters is their perception of your value compared to the other agencies that are available. And so there's sort of three things you need to do to elevate your perceived value. Number one is market specificity, right? This is something most agencies fail to do. This is the core issue at most agencies. They are not speaking to a specific enough market. They're kind of trying to do a bit of everything for everyone, right? Because that's the way agencies grow up. You sort of get whatever clients you can get. You end up with clients in all these different industries, and then you don't really find the courage to just zero in on one specific type of company, one specific market or industry. So the first thing you need to do is hone in on a more specific market. And right there, your value within that market goes up. The second thing is you need to understand and clarify what key results you're going to produce for clients in that market, and get really clear about owning those and communicating those. So now you're speaking to a specific market with a specific set of key results. Again, your perceived value goes out. You stand out because you're becoming more and more specific to that ideal client. And then the third one, and this is kind of the most important one where everything really comes together, is you need to have unique methods to achieve those results. You need to have your own unique or differentiated way of delivering those results to that specific market. And so when you can create those three things, specific market, clearly identified key results, and then unique and differentiating methods and models and ways of achieving those results, now you are totally differentiated within a specific market. You have a high perceived value, and your ability to attract clients from a marketing end, and then your ability to close them from a sales and pitching end increases exponentially.
So I totally get that. I mean, I've gone through this exercise a lot. We tell a lot of the agencies in our world that you we kind of call it funnels as a service, obviously with the funnelytics theme there. But ultimately, what is that core system that you're able to deploy for a very specific audience or a very specific client that achieves a very specific result, right? And the system in my case is your unique differentiation of delivering that, and I call it a system. The result that system provides is what you're kind of talking about here, in terms of like, well, what is that key result? And then on the end is like, well, you can only deploy this system for a very specific audience over and over and over again. And that kind of aligns with you from that standpoint. So tell me about your agency career, and how did you get to that tipping point? How did you get to that discovery that like, this is the thing that most agencies miss, and this is the reason why most agencies aren't able to grow? What was that journey like?
Yeah, that journey started. I mean, obviously, when I was really young, I started, an agency when I was 17. Grew it to 7 people, sold it. The only reason I sold it was because when I was 22, I had a better idea. So then I went and built an entertainment promotions agency, scaled it to 45 people, sold it when I was 24, 2 years later. So I very, at a young age, understood the process of building, scaling, and selling an agency. But when I went over to the client side after that, because I decided, I have no corporate experience here. The first thing I did was I worked at a large agency for a bit, and I understood like how an agency actually functions. But then I went client side for 9 years, and that's really where I figured it out, because I was able to be on the client side. I was writing RFPs. I was putting them out. I was researching agency websites, evaluating different agencies, narrowing them down to a short list, reading 10 proposals, then watching 3 pitches, then evaluating them with a group of other key decision makers that, come from different functions and different perspectives within the organization. And I was able to really understand what clients actually care about when they're choosing and selecting an agency. And so when I then left and sort of defected back to the agency side with all of my inside information, I became an agency new business guy. I did that for many years. I had tremendous success. I think, when I would compete in those pitches against other agencies, what I would often hear from the clients after is that we'd taken a totally different approach. It was just so much more focused on the client and their world and what they actually care about. And so, I mean, to simplify what I'm saying, most agencies spend a lot of time talking about themselves. They spend a lot of time talking about their capabilities, what they do, their history, their story, their case studies, what they've done for clients, instead of actually just creating and telling a story about the client and the journey that client is going to go on and the role that you play in that journey. But really, it's a story about them. And so really understanding what that story is, what that client journey is that you're going to lead them on. And you're just there to support them on that journey. And you can paint a picture for how you support them, but it's their journey, right? And so I think that's the big shift in terms of, an approach you take to your brand positioning, to your brand storytelling, to your marketing, to your sales, to everything. It is really having that more client-centric focus. And a lot of people talk about being customer-centric and client-centric, but, not many people actually execute it properly.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. It's very easy to say you are, but then when you're looking at your own P&L and you're kind of trying to figure out how to get the next client, it becomes very easy to switch, back to like, it's about us. And very rarely do people internally have conversations about clients. They have only when there's a problem and there's something to happen. Otherwise, it's always about us and as a business. So I'd like to get a sense of why you decided that you wanted to help agencies. I mean, you've obviously built multiple businesses, you've built multiple agencies, you've written a couple of books, and one of them specifically for agencies. But you've also built and exited e-commerce businesses, in which case, that wasn't on the agency front. You could have gone and decided I'm going to help e-commerce businesses grow. I'm going to help all sorts of businesses, but you chose agencies. Why?
Well, good question. I mean, overall, that's where I have the most experience, without a doubt. I mean, again, starting agencies and selling them, in my early 20s and even late teens there. So there's nothing I understand better than the dynamics of building, growing, and potentially selling an agency. The second component is because I sort of had an agency of my own a little while back, and I kind of wanted to get out of doing all the creative and all the actual execution. One of the things I like about working with agencies is that they can do all the creative and execution themselves. So I can play a purely strategic coaching role. I can get in there and work with them. And then when it comes time to execute whatever is going to flow into the brand or the website or the marketing or whatever, all the outcomes of our work together, they're able to execute it themselves. And so what I actually do is I do a sort of an interesting take where I become the client. So once they have their roadmap and it's time to execute and create all the things that we worked on, we have regular coaching calls where I'm the client, they have a deadline, and now they're pitching their work back to me and I'm critiquing it. And so I really enjoy that process. And the agencies I work with, they find that really valuable as well. So yeah, it's obviously the level of experience. It's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about. But I also like the fact that the agencies can execute the creative and the copywriting and the website development and all of that themselves, and I can just be there to coach.
Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, it's a big reason why at Funnelytics we help agencies. Primarily, it's because when we work with businesses, well, not every business has the same marketing team. The people in that marketing department may have completely different skill sets. Typically, an agency will always have these core skill sets, and now we can really teach them how to use our platform, and ultimately then they can go on and use it for multiple clients. But it makes it a little easier when they have those skill sets. If you go to an e-com business, for example, and you're like, let me teach you how to grow, and they're like, yeah, but we don't have a designer, we don't have a Facebook ads guy, we don't have it's like, okay, fine, it's going to be really, really hard for you to execute on any of this. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's more, as a coach or consultant, it's more work, basically. That doesn't necessarily add value.
Exactly. You can't just give them the playbook and then they go and execute. Now you got to figure out, how do I solve the next problem, which is you don't have a team to execute on this. So that makes a lot of sense. This has been really interesting. I really appreciate your approach to how you need to be as an agency to really kind of differentiate yourself, kind of the three factors that you shared, alongside the fact that really it is all about the client, and it is about interweaving how you help the client throughout the journey that they're about to go on. Excuse me. And it's fascinating to kind of have that perspective. It's a fresh perspective. So I really appreciate that, Anthony, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing this knowledge. So if people want to learn more about you, if people want to get access to your book, where can they go?
Yeah, I mean, my website would be the best starting point, which is anthonygindin.com. That's GINDIN.com. There's a link there to get the book. You can also just go to theagencysecret.com, which is a bit easier to remember and type in, which will give you access to the book. And then you can always click back over to the website from there. So yeah, that would be the best way. That'll enter you into my whole world. You can always follow me on LinkedIn as well, Anthony Gindin. You'll find links on my website for that. That's where I post most of my content. I'm not super active on social. I tend to just stick to LinkedIn, keep it simple. So yeah, you can check out my website or LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yeah, I used to post a lot on Facebook back in 2018, 2019, and then I said, screw that. I don't want to anymore. I hate this, this platform. So I stick to LinkedIn at these days, and then that's it. So Anthony, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you just shared today. And yeah, everybody head over to Anthony's website to get a copy of his book or follow him on LinkedIn. Thanks a lot.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Michael.